Welcome back, Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times. Good morning, Nick. Welcome back to the program. Great to have you on.
Good to be with you, Hugh.
I want to talk to you primarily about your articles on PornHub, which have done a great public service, and I'll come to that. But I also want to ask you, since Rush Limbaugh died yesterday, and I read the New York Times obituary this morning by Robert McFadden, I think he's 87, and Michael Grinbaum, who's like 37. It's like they they missed the demo, Nick. The demo is 60. What do you think of Rush? I think your obituary people missed him entirely, but what do you think?
I posted on Facebook about his death. I just posted a flat notation of it, and there was promptly a torrent of really harsh denunciations. And I posted on top of it that I thought that it's inappropriate to to speak harshly of somebody in that context. And I frankly do not I don't have a high view of him, and I just don't want to go to it on the right
Okay.
after he's died.
That's actually gentlemanly. I appreciate that. And I've told people Oprah and Rush are the only two people who have built and sustained audiences of more than 30 million people for 30 years in the last 30 years. But if you can't say something nice about someone on the day that they die, don't say anything at all. Nick Kristof, so my hat's off to you. Let's go to PornHub. When I saw that you took this on in December, I was very impressed. In my 20 years on the air, I've only talked about porn a couple of times because listeners turn off the radio. People
Right.
don't want to hear about it, but the moral ugliness of it is so complete. So first of all, how did you decide to do it? How did you investigate it without injuring your soul? And what did your readers think?
So I had written about child pornography once years earlier, and I'd had a similar reaction. I'm like, nobody read it. It was just, but I was truly horrified because I think I'd had somehow had the vision that child pornography was about 16-year-old girls, pulling off their clothes or something. And no, I mean, an awful lot of it is about preteen girls being raped multiple ways in horrifying situations. And so then some people asked me about Pornhub, and I poked around, and some of the first videos that I found, Hugh, were of unconscious women who were being raped, and to prove that they were unconscious, the rapists were touching their eyeballs as showing that there was no movement. And I just could not believe this. And then I talked to underage kids who'd been raped, and those rape videos posted on Pornhub. And the idea that a major company was monetizing the rapes of children or of unconscious women just seemed unconscionable. And I thought that Canada, which hosts the company, would find that pretty objectionable too. And so I wrote the piece, and indeed, Canadians were horrified. I and So, the most important result was that Pornhub took down 10 million videos that were posted there by random people, including rape videos, including others that weren't. And the single best comment I got back from a reader was, it was a young woman who'd been raped. That rape video had been on Pornhub. She'd tried for years to get it off. It kept going back. And she said, I can breathe again.
Wow. Now, what I loved about those columns is that you established moral complicity. That if you are going to use Pornhub, even if I'm an evangelical, so I have an objection to it. The Roman Catholic Church in me has an objection to it. But if you're a complete agnostic and you say, hey, libertarian approach, you nevertheless establish complicity for users who thought they were doing Playboy. They were actually monetizing the abuse of children, and not just the abuse of children that sanitizes it, the rape and brutalization of children. Did your readers react with, oh my gosh, I had no idea, or did they react with, that's not my problem?
So some of both. I mean, there were plenty of people who were angry at me. I got more death threats, frankly, Hugh, over the Pornhub takedown than I've had over just about any issue that I can think of. I mean, there were a lot of readers who were really furious and some were saying, look, on Pornhub, I just watch anime, and that isn't real people, and you've taken away this anime. Um, but and then there were other people who were upset because they said that some women are consensually selling sex videos on Pornhub. They're making a living. They're marginalized. You're taking away this income. And because then, after my article, then Visa and MasterCard had cut off ties to the company. But um, I think that most readers were really shocked at the idea that underage kids. I mean, I quoted a girl whose life had been destroyed because non-consensual videos of her beginning in the 8th grade had been placed on the company. She'd been on the website. They went up time after time. She ended up leaving school. She ended up with addictions. She tried to commit suicide. In fact, one of the common threads of so many of the victims I talked to was that they had been so humiliated that they had attempted suicide. And I think that, readers understood that this is something truly beyond the pale, that whatever you think about porn, you don't think that there should be a website that is monetizing rape videos of young children.
If you think about moral complicity, and that means being involved, let's break it down for the Steelers fans. If you are involved tangentially with that which is evil, you are in fact advancing evil. So if you're selling iron to the Krupp Iron Works, who is turning it into artillery for the Nazis, you are involved in the Holocaust, whether or not you want to admit it. So in this great continent of porn, there are certain states within it which no one can defend. It's the only part of, I teach First Amendment almost every year. I'm off this year. And I say porn is not speech. It's not protected. It's not First Amendment protected. It can be regulated. We choose not to regulate it. But we choose to outlaw child porn. And people like to draw a box around that and say, that's not me. I'm over here doing that. I think your column may have shocked a lot of the libertarian readers of New York Times because you drew the bridges. You connected the dots. You attached moral complicity to it.
Yeah, I mean, so frankly, Hugh, I don't really have a particular view about adult consensual porn. So though, but what I do see as moral complicity is when a company like that allows non-consensual or underage videos to go on it. And then when credit cards companies become complicit by supporting that entire enterprise, when regulators turn their back. So I do think that at least I don't have a fully formed view about the consensual adult side of porn, and it strikes me as a less urgent moral problem. Whereas the non-consensual side, I find that profoundly offensive and horrifying and urgent.
Let me bounce two things off of you, Nick. Two great voices of moral consciousness. One is dead. Chuck Colson was a friend of mine. And when I interviewed him for PBS in the 90s, he said, the thing about pornography, think of a large lake. No matter how large the lake, if you pour enough pollution into it, you'll kill everything into the lake. So he viewed pornography as an addictive habit that would destroy human feeling. Archbishop Chaput, who's listening right now in Philadelphia, because he listens every morning, has written about the confessional and where men especially come in and discuss the impact on their lives of the addiction that they develop to pornography because it's a brain chemical. And I am simply a lawyer doing proximate cause. If you're ching-chinging at PornHub, you're paying for everything on PornHub. That's the bottom line. And I think that's where you gave liberals or maybe libertarians and both permission to look at the moral universe of PornHub. And unlike your book, A Path Appears, where you draw hopeful connection between people doing small good things becoming great big good things, here you've done the reverse. I just don't want you to go off that way forever because that way lies darkness, right?
Yeah, yeah. I would say that the next step, that there are other companies like Pornhub that also just take in, they're kind of essentially YouTubes of porn. They take in anything and they don't verify it. And so Pornhub is no longer, they're under enormous scrutiny right now. Their leaders may go to prison, but there are other companies, and we have to make sure that the content doesn't migrate to them. And X Videos, based in Europe, is one of the prime offenders there. When I searched middle school on X Videos, then it offered elementary school as a
Oh.
suggested alternative. I mean, it's you know there's just no excuse for this. And I think it's important that there be pressure also on Europe to regulate and close down sites that exploit rape videos of children there, so it doesn't just bounce to some new platform.
Well, it's an international industry, and therefore it's an international problem that will require an international consensus to fix. Last
Yes.
question, Nick Kristof. Is that emerging?
I I'm not sure, but I think there's hope for it. So I've been kind of trying to pursue the holding company that owns X Videos, and it's kind of based in the Czech Republic. It's striking that the Czech Republic is now doing a criminal investigation of that. There, I think that there also is some sign, and I'd be curious about your view of this, that just as the world originally united around the idea that piracy was a crime against all nations and that everybody would respond, that there's beginning to be something of that consensus against some other crimes on the internet. So that includes child pornography, that includes some kinds of hacking. And that is essential, because otherwise we simply can't get a grip on those kinds of crimes, and a company will simply go to the country that regulates it least. And so I hope that consensus is emerging, and I think the U.S. can push it along, with some combination of bully pulpit and the threat of sanctions.
I think you're right, Nick, because there is a natural law. That natural law eventually permeates everyone, believer, non believer, liberal, conservative. They understand some things are self evident, and the bartering of children is one of those things that's self evident. And everyone who has children immediately says, that's awful. So my hat is off to you. Well done, and a happy new year to you, Nick. I hope. Have you got vaccinated? You're too young to get vaccinated. So
I'm a
uh,
kid.
you're a kid. I'm vaccine eligible on Monday. So
Okay.
congratulations, Nick. Next time I talk to you, I will be fully vaccinated. Be well. Congratulations. Great moral work. I'm glad you did it.
Thanks so much, Hugh. Take care.
Be well. Nicholas